things off, if I may, first of all, with a question from Daniel. Daniel has made the comment that he would be quite literally lost without his mobile phone, his smartphone and his tablet. That those two pieces of technology have been really revolutionary for him. But does the panel agree that tablets and smartphones are revolutionary for the autistic community? So that's an interesting question.
Yes. Yeah. Obviously, if Daniel's finding it invaluable, then who are we to query that, really? And yeah, absolutely. And they're so immediate and easy to use, and that there are concerns around addiction and whether it provides a barrier to face-to-face communication. And that's what a lot of non-autistic people see as a challenge of using this technology. But in terms from Daniel's perspective, if it's enabling that communication, yeah, it seems invaluable.
What he said, yeah. No, I mean, absolutely, yes. I mean, I think that's what we've been talking about and Mark's presented. You know, it's you go into autistic communities and they're saying yes, so who are we to challenge or, so absolutely.
Well, and I guess that's, again, part of the importance of making sure that when, as you said, Nigel, you're thinking about what research to do, as well as the process of how you do that research, ensuring that you are engaging with and connecting, perhaps if needs be, using technology with the autistic community to get their thoughts and voices is going to ensure that you have a really diverse perspective on what you do and how you do it, I guess. So, yeah, I think that's certainly something I feel very passionately about. But enough of us. What questions have you guys, and has everybody in the audience got? So would anybody like to ask a question of the panel today? I think there's a microphone coming around now.
Thank you for the conference, the organisation, and also to the speakers. Perhaps not quick question. A lot of the research that you described and the idea of participation and including autistic community in designing and feedback on the research seems very skewed, naturally, it sounds in the presentation at least, towards segments of the autistic population who are verbal. Can you describe to me some of the work that's being done, the research being done with the non-verbal populations? I imagine there are intrinsic challenges there, but if you would both share with me a little bit. I know that in the VR we had some of the students were non-verbal, but also to Professor Brosnan, the work that you've come across in this space.
Yeah. I totally agree. Research within autistic domains tends to focus on higher functional autistics without learning difficulties. So there is a skew very much in the literature as a starting point. But yeah, so back to what you were going to
Yeah, I did. I reviewed some of the study that we did that involved children with intellectual disability and autistic and intellectual disability, and it really was to address that issue. Is the vast majority of research is undertaken on children who can give verbal feedback about their experiences. So one of the aims was really to compare children who are minimally verbal with those who are verbal to see, are there any differences in the opinions that they're expressing? And we found no. Firstly, that the children, if you set the environment appropriately, those children with intellectual disabilities with the right visual supports could engage fully in the task, which was an important point to make. But secondly, and positively, there weren't actually any differences between the verbal autistic children and the non-verbal autistic children. And the task we had was developing rewards and how do you want the technology to work. So those similarities did seem to be consistent across the autistic communities.
And I think just to add to that, and in terms of an ethical perspective, well, I think when you're working with non-verbal autistic people, in our case, with a head-mounted display on, we need to, as researchers and as teachers, I guess, ensure that there are ways that they can express that they don't want to continue with the work or the project. And I think that's another. So there is, but there is an urgent need to investigate, more so that as you say, autistic with learning difficulties. And we've tried to, we haven't excluded anybody because of that in our research.
No.
And with the work we did actually over in the States, again, we worked with a wide range and often quite crudely, intellectual context can be, placed upon, IQ. And we worked with people, from a very sort of about 45, 47 IQ, 47 through to 140. So we worked with quite a range, very specifically to get that sort of picture across a range. I mean, the criticism with that was that it's very broad, and what can you draw from that, and should you not be targeting stuff, which was one of the criticisms of a review of the work we did. But we were quite clear that we wanted to work with that spectrum, actually, and get the views and opinions, and that's continued in the work we've done in the schools. Yeah. But thanks for raising that important point.
And I think it's a really fundamental point, because, you know, it's about communication, however somebody is able to communicate, whether it's verbal, whether it's visual, whether it's through a movement or whatever it is. The technologies are changing so fast now that actually all the rules that used to stop us being able to engage or help people are gone now. There's so much technology out there. So actually, if you can connect with particularly the autistic community, who may have some insight into technologies that even a lot of the technologists are not aware of. I mean, I'm increasingly surprised. I think sometimes that, you know, somebody who has a technology or computer science background will know everything about technology, but there's so much out there that it's not possible to know everything. But if you engage with the autistic community and you engage with the technologies, and we help those communities to collaborate, then actually that's perhaps where we can find the you know, the diamonds in the dust, the little nuggets that will enable us to try and find a way of involving somebody or creating an opportunity for someone to participate. So, any other questions?
Sorry, this is to you, Nigel. You said there was a large age range. Was there an optimum age that seemed to engage more with the virtual reality?
In the working with the children in the school?
Yes.
Yeah, because we work with an age range. So with the US study, we worked with sort of 18 to 53-year-olds. Actually, so that was working with adult populations because of, you know, because of the ethical dilemma around that. But this, we wanted to work with younger groups. But yeah, I would certainly say we noticed that the very younger groups, so 6 up to about maybe 9 or 10, had quite a different experience compared to sort of 10 and above.
So the younger age group had a more positive?
No, less positive. No, there were more concerns with that group, health and safety wise, as well as I think some of the benefits afforded by that technology actually. But so that's just anecdotal in terms of you would agree with that?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it was one of those cases where we sort of took back and thought actually maybe this isn't appropriate at this time, didn't we?
Yeah.
But we wanted to include everybody because obviously whatever data you can collect is important data. But I think we ended up looking at the 10 plus, didn't we, in the end?
I think so. Yeah.
And that's not to say that the other children did not experience it. We just did not include them in the research. They all of them wanted to try and be involved.
So we did have 6 to 10-year-olds involved, or 9-year-olds involved, but yeah, there was some. You'll see if you sort of see how heavy the equipment is, you know, as well as anything else, and the general sort of balance and the health and safety. I mean, we approached it very carefully, and we were able to, you know, identify that this isn't maybe necessarily a great fit at this point for those age groups. Although my child, who's 8, absolutely loved it and was running around the place like a mad boy, but absolutely. So, but that doesn't bear out necessarily for all of the. And some people responded to it very differently. I remember we put it on one of the younger guys, and he just wanted to run around in a circle the whole time wearing it. You know, so you start to wonder: is this really the right sort of piece of technology for that student in this context? You know, in that. So there's more stuff emerging, but I think there's enough sort of positivity and enough good signs to suggest we need to continue investigating this particular technology for the benefit of the autistic world or groups or students. Thank you.
I was wondering about the follow-up after the VR tests and with the children and the families and whether children and families were interested in maybe getting a headset, and then we talked about the community and also maybe if there was any engagement with the parents, because I'm thinking if the parents can understand this technology as well and how it can be used well, then surely that would make a really big difference.
Yeah, so we did, before we went into the classrooms and started any of this, just before Christmas there was an event where all the parents were coming to a Christmas showcase, and we had all the technology available then, and the parents were able to sort of, you know, ethically sign their children up to the project, but they had a chance to experience the equipment, and many of them took that opportunity actually. They did, and we had a few sort of nice follow-ups from the work when the students have gone home from parents coming back saying, you know, like you said, so-and-so has been talking about this, they really enjoyed that experience. And coming up in October, we've got a sort of a family fun day where we're going to take the equipment into that environment as well to give parents a chance to fully explore and experience what their children have been working on over the last few months. So, but that's a really important point, getting that buy-in across a different range of stakeholder groups. So that piece, so we did sort of bookend that a bit in terms of before and then after. So the parents, and I'm sure you all recognise this. Some parents are more engaged, in the school and in what the learners do, what their children are doing. So we've found, it can be hit and miss. We've had one project we're working with, co-designing an app to help autistic people navigate museums. And we've had a lot of difficulty getting parents to work with us on that particular project. So it's a challenge, but I think it's a challenge we have to face, and we have to do exactly what you've said, involve parents in this too.
Yeah. I would say that parental engagement is absolute key, and we're very lucky because a lot of our parents will actively engage, and they do want to know. I mean, we do have, our parents are actually quite young. The majority of our parents are quite young, so this technology isn't that far out of their grasp. And they all wanted to be involved in it, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's definitely 120 children that want a VR kit for Christmas now. it's and the parents.
A whole other set of issues as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I think that what's really standing out for me is the kind of the importance of collaboration, the importance of health and safety, assessing the risks, working with partners who are sort of experts in responsible research and innovation and that sort of side of things. So I guess that we can make sure that we get the full value out of all the investment that everybody's making. I've got a question here from Rebecca Doofus. This is, how would you best use VR in a mainstream classroom? Whole class, small groups, or one-to-one with an adult?
You're all looking at me. We're looking at me for.
Yeah, you looked at me, I looked at him, and there's no one else to look at. There's no one else to look at.
I think it's also important to say we're not just talking about head-mounted display VR. We could be talking about Minecraft. We could be talking about all sorts of different online games and experiences and apps and iPads.
Well, so it depends on what the technology affords you. If it is a multi-platform Minecraft type of game, then there's nothing to stop you working across a group of 20. Is there? But I think for the VR work we've done, we found it very important to work in very small groups. 2s and 3s we worked with mainly. We found that most beneficial because it's with some of the kit we used, it's a one-to-one experience. So the other two are kind of stood around and helping and collaborating in some cases, but no more than 3. We didn't work with any more than 3, and that was in the mainstream schools as well. And we often had a separate room, a separate space where they could experiment with that. That was more for our study purposes, but I think if you're going to be taking it into the classrooms, still having separate rooms, separate space, and working with small groups would be.
The academic possibilities are endless. I mean, the first day that we had it, I climbed Mount Everest, I fixed a solar panel on the International Space Station, then went for a walk in the countryside. There's experiences there for subjects that you would never be able to take children on. And yes, it is a costly way of providing that experience, but for small groups, that's possible, isn't it? I think where it sort of comes into special educational needs schools is it's identifying those niches where you're not yet at the point where they can begin to develop on that. They need an avenue in first, and it's very much about identifying those avenues. But in mainstream, certainly something like the Class VR kits and the Google Cardboards, you can just give that experience in a teaching session and say, go and explore this.
20 of them, yeah, that's right, yeah. So you could use it in much bigger context,
really set the scene and really sort of enhance that experience.
Mark, what are your thoughts on
Obviously, a lot of this is classroom-based, and one of the biggest group of autistic people, clearly those who aren't children. And to do this as an adult is very difficult, because a lot of this is being introduced in schools, which is great, and then you have the expert teachers and the researchers there within that environment, but the difficulties for those who are over 18, and once you go past 25, how can you develop these capacity to take on board and get the benefits of any technology, VR, when you're pretty much left by yourself? I expect you have the answer to that, Nigel, but we need to acknowledge really that it's great that this is happening in schools, but how we can work together to ensure that benefits can extend to the adult community as well.
And I do think that's a very important point. I mean, my focus has always been on sort of post 18 really. Is how, you know, what can we do? How can we use technology and work with the autistic community to address the exclusion of adults with autism from employment, but also from many other aspects of life because of some of the practical barriers. So I think there's, you know, it seems to me that, you know, that whilst there are some difficulties there, that could also be an opportunity. Perhaps this is an opportunity for schools, for parents to have a sort of a role in encouraging more collaboration with the local community, so that actually not only are there benefits to the school, but perhaps there's some work experience or some opportunities in helping with sort of identifying what kinds of projects could be done. So maybe we can create a win-win. And I just wanted to ask, I'm conscious of time, and I'm sure that we need to get moving to the other very exciting sessions that are coming up. So what I'm going to suggest is, I'm sure there are lots of other questions. If people could leave their questions at the registration desk, tweet them, or come and give them to me, then I will make sure that we get some airtime for them later on today. Thank you so much to our speakers here today.